Practical Vedanta, Part 3, delivered in London, 17th November 1896, Text 1. In the Chanda Yoga Upanishad, we read that a sage called Narad came to another called Sanat Kumar and asked him various questions, of which one was if religion was the cause of things as they are. And Sanat Kumar leads him, as it were, step by step, telling him that there is something higher than this earth and something higher than that, and so on till he comes to Akasha, ether. Ether is higher than light, because in the ether are the sun and the moon, lightning and the stars. In ether we live, and in ether we die. Then the question arises if there is anything higher than that, and Sanat Kumar tells him of prana. This prana, according to Vedanta, is the principle of life. It is like ether, an omnipresent principle, and all motion either in the body or anywhere else is the work of this prana. It is greater than Akasha, and through it everything lives. Prana is in the mother, in the father, in the sister, in the teacher. Prana is the knower. I will read another passage where Svatketu asks his father about the truth, and the father teaches him different things and concludes by saying, that which is fine cause in all these things, of it are all these things made. That is the all. That is the truth, thou art that, O Svetketu. And then he gives various examples. As a bee, O Svetketu, gathers honey from different flowers, and as the different honeys do not know that they are from various trees and from various flowers, so all of us, having come to that existence, know that we have done so. Now that which is that subtle essence, in it all that exists as itself. It is the truth. It is the self and thou. O Svetketu are that. He gives another example of the rivers running down the oceans. As the rivers, when they are in the ocean, do not know that they have been various rivers, even so when we come out of that existence, we do not know that we are that. O Svetketu, thou art that. So on he goes with his teachings. Now there are two principles of knowledge. The one principle is that we know by referring the particular to the general and the general to the universal, and the second is that anything of which the explanation is sought is to be explained so far as possible from its own nature. Taking up the first principle, we see that our knowledge really consists of classifications going higher and higher. When something happens singly, we are, as it were, dissatisfied. When it can be shown that the same thing happens again and again, we are satisfied and call it law. When we find that one apple falls, we are dissatisfied. But when we find that all apples fall, we call it the law of gravitation and are satisfied. The fact is that from the particular we deduce the general. When we want to study religion, we should apply this scientific process. The same principle also holds good here, and as a fact, we find that that has been the method all through. In reading these books from which I have been translating to you, the earliest idea that I can trace is this principle of going from the particular to the general. We see how the bright ones become merged into one principle. And likewise, in the ideas of the cosmos, we find the ancient thinkers going higher and higher. From the fine elements, they go to finer and more embracing elements. And from these particulars, they come to one omnipresent ether. And from that even, they go to an all-embracing force or prana. And through all this runs the principle that one is not separate from the others. It is the very ether that exists in the higher form of prana, or the higher form of prana concretes, so to say, and becomes ether. And that ether becomes grosser and so on. The generalization of the personal God is another case in point. We have seen how this generalization was reached and was called the sum total of all consciousness. But a difficulty arises. It is an incomplete generalization. We take up only one side of the facts of nature, the fact of consciousness, and upon that we generalize, but the other side is left out. So, in the first place, it is a defective generalization. There is another insufficiency, and that relates to the second principle. Everything should be explained from its own nature. There may have been people who thought that every apple that fell to the ground was dragged down by a ghost. But the explanation is the law of gravitation. And although we know it is not a perfect explanation, yet it is much better than the other because it is derived from the nature of the thing itself, while the other posits an extraneous cause. So, throughout the whole range of our knowledge, the explanation which is based upon the nature of the thing itself is a scientific explanation, and an explanation which brings in an outside agent is unscientific. So, the explanation of a personal God as the creator of the universe has to stand that test. If that God is outside of nature, having nothing to do with nature, and this nature is the outcome of the command of that God and produced from nothing, it is very unscientific theory. And this has been the weak point of every theistic religion throughout the ages. These two defects we find in what is generally called the theory of monotheism, the theory of a personal God with all the qualities of a human being multiplied very much, who by his will created this universe out of nothing and yet is separate from it. This leads us into two difficulties.